Hey, what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to go into chapter 2 of The Women of the Bible Speak by Shannon Bream. This is going to be the stories of Rachel and Leah, sisters and rivals. Like I've said in previous videos, if you guys do not wish to watch me read about things that have happened in the Bible or talk about the Bible, you have every right to click off the video now. You have been warned. The first story we are starting off with is Rachel, so let's get right into this video. Rachel and Leah, sisters and rivals. Rachel. Genesis 29, 1 through 30, 24, 31, 31 through 34, and Genesis 35, 16 through 20. The story of Jacob and Rachel is a fascinating account of love, deception, and jealousy, and is more outlandish than just about any reality show today. Here for the first time in the Bible, we see a romantic attachment that looks a lot like we are used to, maybe even that fairy tale concept of love at first sight. All the pairs of husbands and wives we see before this, Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, are the result of some outside intervention. These marriages probably resulted in love between the spouses, but the fact remains that the pairs didn't come together in the way most couples do today. That just wasn't how families worked in that time and place. Marriages were transactional in nature, often just as much as an alliance of family and property as of two people. And then came Jacob and Rachel. The story of Rachel is inseparable from the story of her husband, Jacob. She was the end of an object of his quest. When we first meet Jacob, we find that he's in a rivalry with his twin brother Esau. Jacob was his mother's favorite, while Esau held his father's affection. It was over a bowl of stew that Jacob first cheated his brother out of his inheritance. And then, as their father lay on his deathbed, Jacob pulled off a scam that also stripped Esau of his blessing as firstborn. Finally, Esau had enough. Esau intended to kill Jacob as soon as their father Isaac died. Their mother warned Jacob and consoled him to flee to her brother Laban's home far away. It was on the way there that Jacob had a famous vision of the stairway or ladder between earth and heaven, with the angels ascending and descending it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord of God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All people on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Genesis 28, 13 through 15. Jacob, the scam artist who was out to get out of life what he could, no matter whom he had to trample, was suddenly shown a vision of a life much larger than his own. He was given a blessing and a promise by God himself, and it changed his life. The God of Abraham and Isaac had reached down to Jacob, a God in whom we can imagine Jacob hadn't been too interested at this point. Immediately after this vision at Bethel, Jacob encountered Rachel. Moses, the writer of Genesis, intentionally placed their meeting immediately after the vision. Was Jacob seeing the world with fresh eyes after the divine encounter? He was clearly overcome with emotion when he met Rachel by the well. And he realized that for all the people he could have encountered, as he fled from the threat of death, she would take him one step closer to safety. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. Genesis 29, 10 through 12. After Jacob worked for Laban for a month, Laban asked the younger man what wages he could pay him. Jacob, smitten, asked for one thing he desired most. Jacob was in love with Rachel, and he said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Genesis 29, 18 through 20. Can you imagine making this deal with your future father-in-law? 7 years, and the Bible tells us it seemed like only a few days because of how much he loved her. But here is where we see the ultimate double-crosser get exactly what he dished out to his brother, and the betrayal comes from his uncle Laban. You see, Rachel and Jacob weren't alone in this fairy tale. Rachel had an older sister, Leah, and here's how the Bible describes them. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Genesis 29:17. Rachel probably had all the prospects in the world, but Laban wanted to get his older daughter married first, so he laid a trap for Jacob at the altar. After a night of feasting, Laban substituted Leah for Rachel, and Jacob didn't figure this out until the next morning. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Genesis 29:25. Jacob was outraged, but it didn't dim his love for Rachel, and he certainly didn't appear to blame her. His love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah. The scripture tells us, Genesis 29:30. We also see he made a deal with Laban. "Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of your work." Genesis 29:27. And that's exactly what Jacob did. 14 years of labor to finally settle the debt for the woman he fell for the first time he saw her, sheep herding her father's flock in the fields. How must all of this have felt to Rachel, watching as Leah was married to Jacob and not her, and knowing that she was the object of his undying affection? Had she been counting on the plan that she would marry a handsome man who had fallen deeply in love with her, watching her sister go off to bed with Jacob on what should have been her own honeymoon turned her fairy tale into a nightmare? Even worse, it was a gut-wrenching betrayal involving her sister. What happened to her relationship with Leah? We don't know much about their relationship before Jacob arrived on the scene, but it seems it went steadily downhill after that. Rachel's frustrations only mounted when her sister was able to conceive, when she could not. But imagine how Leah must have felt during this time. God had mercy on her. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive. But Rachel remained childless. Genesis 29:31. More on Leah to come. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister, so she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Genesis 30:1-2. Not only does Scripture give us a dramatic love story in Jacob and Rachel, but it also reminds us that conflict in marriage has been around for ages. Rachel took her husband what she thought was a legitimate grievance, and he reminded her that it was God who was in charge of her destiny. For Rachel, this was deeply personal. As we saw in the story of Sarah, fertility in the ancient world was about much more than just having children. Fertility, the life created and carried by women, was considered a sign of God's favor. For Rachel, her lack of fertility must have felt like a curse. Was infertility to be her reward for everything she has gone through? She had waited 7 long years for her chance to marry Jacob and have children. Surely God would reward her, but it seems she got only heartache instead. One of the stages of grief counselors tell us is bargaining. We say to God, "Okay, what do I have to do to undo this pain and get what I want?" Seen this way, Rachel's life appears to be one long stage of grief, because if she is consistently bargaining, she's always looking for a way to fix her situation, and in that she is very much like the man she married. Rachel's first attempt at solving her problem was the same strategy we saw Sarah deploy. When Sarah doubted that God's promise to her would ever come to fruition, she took matters into her own hands. Rachel proposed that the same deal that Sarah had given Abraham: "Have a child with my servant." Rachel offered her servant Bilhah to Jacob in her place, intending then raise Bilhah's children as her own, and this seemed to work. I'm going to leave it off right there, and I will see you guys in part 2 of this story. Bye.